Hi, my name is Elena Nezhinsky, and this is the Complete Humanity series of videos for long-time spiritual seekers who are still looking for spiritual awakening or confused about spiritual awakening, what it is, and where they are in relation to what they think is spiritual awakening is. And today we'll see where I will go. I always go where my mind goes with what is present right here, what is interesting right at this moment. And I'm dressed in black today. I actually appreciate this series during the lockdown of the world pandemic, because I can dress up every day in something new. It doesn't mean that I completely dress up. I'm in California, and in California we wear leggings everywhere. So from chest down to the waist, I'm dressed up. and then and then it's a mystery. All right. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll cut off this part. We'll see. So let's see if I can talk today about one subject that is and was on my mind for some time already. I met a lot of people in spiritual circles, and in a way I was one of them too. We have this to different degrees, but I met a lot of people, fellow spiritual seekers, who cut off from the sensory experience, who live mostly in the mind, in their head, like I would say simply. And a lot of people in the West, even if they are not spiritual seekers, because I was a computer programmer, systems analyst at Time Warner Corporation, big corporation in Manhattan, on, I think it was 49th Street and 5th Avenue, right in the center of Manhattan. I worked there for 10 years or so. And before that, I worked in other corporate environment. And I met a lot of people who live in their mind. If you ask them what they feel, they have troubles to know their feeling. And also, they don't really know, or they don't have access, full access to body sensations. And I describe my experience of discovering this about myself, and how I started to feel fully the sensations first time. In my book, Buddha on a Bull, Practical Approach to Enlightenment, I shared my experience of first time since probably very early childhood, sensing my body in such a full and real way, and I had no idea at all that I don't have full access to sensations and to feelings in me. I had no idea. And so all these people, and you might be one of them, you might have no idea that you don't really live fully in your body, that your energy is more located in the upper part of your being, in the mind, and you're constantly in the thought process, and you so identify with that, you so believe in your thoughts, you have no doubt that the thoughts that you live in may be not really even correct, maybe not even real. This is not a reality, it's just thoughts. But for you, it's a full reality. Your thoughts create reality in which you live. And a lot of spiritual seekers who live in their head choose spiritual practices that reinforce this separation from the body. A lot of seekers choose the practices that does not require the whole body experience. The whole being experience, the whole human experience. They rather practice something that takes them out of human experience into transcendent experience. It happens in very, very early childhood, when being in the body, for some reason, was so painful and unbearable for the baby, that this disconnect happened. It happened unintentionally, as I said before, or I don't want to say that it's intentional, because parents mostly affect their children, their babies, unintentional. And there are a lot of reasons for this. I will go into this in my future videos. I don't want to spend more time on this right now, on these particular details. But let's say for some reason either in the womb or during the childbirth or right after the childbirth, being in the physical body felt so overwhelming for undeveloped mind, for powerless existence, because we are very powerless when we are small, little babies. We totally depend on our survival from environment, which includes our parents or caregivers. In that powerless state, if there was lack of love, lack of safety, if we were not held in fullness of love and safety and ease for some reason, it was so overwhelming to be in physical that we disconnect. The mind split. The physical and the mental. The numbing. We became numb to the body. To being fully embodied. We became numb to that. Because it was more safe not to feel. It was less overwhelming for the system. And then we live all our adult life not feeling much, though we don't know this. We live in the mind and we listen to what mind tells us, and that's our reference to the life. That's our reference to the experience. Our reference to the experience is the thoughts, the labels that we put on the experience. Because we are not fully engaged, immersed, feel experience. We have only reference to the experience, which is our thinking, the labels that we put on the experience. Like I said in my book, and a lot of people talk about the same thing, it's instead of walking the terrain, walking through the field, we use the map. The map. That's what mind is. The map with labels for the actual experience. So now imagine, or you don't need to imagine, you might live life like this. How fulfilling this living is. How satisfying this living is. Sure, we can think that it's fulfilling and satisfying. But the experience, the real experience, is that we live on a surface, a very surface of the experience, in the head. And something in us knows this. It knows this. And creates this longing, the deep feeling of longing to be real, to live fully. And this, for some of us, brings us to spiritual search. Because we think that spiritual search will bring us to the fullness. We don't think like this actually, because we don't know what at the end of the spiritual search. We also only know that we not feel comfortable right now. Living in the head is not comfortable. It's very shaky foundation to be focused energetically in the head, in the thinking. So we just search for relief from that uncomfortable living. And if we come to meet somebody who will introduce us to spiritual search, we take that hand so tight as a survival line, which keeps us going looking for relief. Unfortunately, we choose the practices, especially before. Right now it's changed. I can see it's changed. But even 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, we choose practices that we resonate more with, more intellectual, more mind-based practices. One of them, and I don't want to condemn it at all, and I'm not sure if I want to name it but I think it's important for some people to understand this. That for some of us to practice something that takes us out of the body, to create more transcendent experience, just perpetuate this problem that we are disconnected from the body. We are disconnected from our whole organism, energetically disconnected. But for some of us, and let's say minority, those who really disconnected with the body, that practice just takes them out again, again, and again, every day. So if you're one of them, I don't know how you actually will recognize this, because I remember myself when I had no idea I was disconnected until that connection happened. Then I only recognized that I wasn't connected. It was a fragmentation in my mind, which is not visible, you can't feel it. There can be only signs. For example, if I ask you what you feel, what you sense, and you have troubles to feel and sense it. So for these people, I would recommend more body-based meditation. Like not even meditation, for example, somatic experiencing, or even vipassana meditation based on body sensations. I'm not saying that you have to do it all your life, but just to explore the body a little bit. A little bit more intimate. There are other types of vipassana meditation, and one of them is noticing mind states. And I recorded that video yesterday. That type of exploration is also taking you from the body experience, just to notice mind states. And maybe you notice, if you tried, that it was easier. But I would encourage anyone who have troubles with feeling the feelings, recognizing the feelings, and the body sensations, I would encourage more body-based practices, just to know yourself better, just to start to return fully and embody your own body. This is very healing experience, to ascend to your own body and let the whole organism heal, start to heal. I noticed there is two different types of people who are disconnected with their physicality. One is intellectual type, cerebral, what we call. These people, they are not necessarily spiritual seekers. They choose intellectual life, not intentionally. They just drawn to live a life of intellectual. Somebody who is in an intellectual profession, and all his life is based on intellectualizing. These are might be very bright people, very professional, very talented. They might achieve in their profession a lot, and they compensate with that in other areas of their life that might not work because they are disconnected. Essentially, they are not living the fullness of who they are. And they feel it, and they compensate by engaging more in intellectual activity. And there is a lot of people like that in non-duality. Who drawn to this path because they are very, very bright. And they can grasp non-dual concepts with their well-developed mind. And they live in conceptual non-duality. They like to debate, to discuss, to study, read, watch, talk about non-duality, about spirituality, about awakening. It's all conceptual. They don't know it. And when I tell people to give that up and go live their life fully, engage in what's right now in front of their eyes or in front of them in life. And it can be sick parents, unruly child, troubled relationship. It's difficult for them to understand that they need to give up the space where they feel some kind of comfort, that they can talk about spirituality, they can talk about awakening, they can be so eloquent in all these concepts that it seems to them that they live it, that they live awake. So if you live awake why you need to talk about it every day? It's not necessary. Just notice that talking about this, it's just reinforcing in the head conceptual awakening. Another type of people that I met, and I met these people less in non-duality but more in New Age circles, more mystical circles. These people, they're less intellectual but more in connection to their energy field. They left the body in very early stage of their life almost completely. And they are more connected to their energy field than their physical body. These people are some of them, very ungrounded. They might even look very ethereal. Some of them look very weak. But they have very interesting abilities to feel so deeply the energy field of their own system, and they're very in tune with energetic field of everybody else around, and they're very, very sensitive. I remember I was involved in family constellations training for a full year, every week, lots of hours. And I remember on one of the gatherings, I think it was a conference, there was a man who looked very undeveloped in his physicality, and we were making for him a constellation to bring him back into his human body. He was very, very sensitive, beautiful man, 40 years old, never had relationships because he was too sensitive to be with anybody. I don't even know how he ended up on that conference. So I remember this beautiful experience, how 40 or 50 of us created a cradle for him, and he was held by all of these women. We just were holding him physically. He had to relax in that holding. He had to totally relax, and we were just supporting his body. And everybody cried. I'm almost crying right now. for him to just feel that he is held, he is supported, and he is safe in it. To feel his body, to feel himself in his own physicality. I remember that man next day. He looked completely different. His face, his everything changed. Of course, it will take time for the body to catch up, to get engaged back into whole being, to start to develop proper muscular system for adult at 40 years old who looked like he's 13 or even less. And he was, I'm sure, a seeker all his life. Out of suffering that he experienced, he couldn't explain this, what's going on. He was just isolating himself. Because it was too painful to connect, too sensitive. This is very extreme situation. Most of us don't have this extreme. Most of us, of course, pretty much together. But a lot of us, more as a first type of people I described, a lot of us live disconnected from our physicality and value more mental activities. Today I just wanted to start to talk why we get embarked on a spiritual search to compensate for the pain that we feel, the suffering, the human suffering. Because some of us have this feel of disconnect more, and that's why we're so engaged, so passionate about seeking the relief from suffering. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful what human is. To be born in the physical reality, to be disconnected from fullness who we are, get limited in a form, and then all life trying to look how to become full, complete. Because only that feeling of completeness actually stop the seeking. Seeking perpetuates by feeling incomplete. Incomplete in this moment. If you complete in this moment, there is no seeking. I hope I open this subject so you understood a little bit that spiritual search is not something that is I don't know how to explain. So I hope that it's more clear right now for people that we don't need to glorify spiritual search. In comparison to seeking in other ways how people proceed. People search for completeness in all kinds of ways. Through parenthood, relationships, drugs and alcohol, trying to have fun all the time, intellectualizing, and so on. And all these ways are trying to be full, be complete, rest in yourself, be at ease in yourself, with yourself. Just be. Without trying to be better, be somebody else, something else. And some will disagree, sure, because spend 20 years, 15, 30, 40 years on a spiritual search, it's a big investment of a human life. And to discount it, that it's basically seeking for yourself. Painful. People will defend their spiritual search, their spiritual seeking activity, because it gives them a meaning. It gives them identity of a spiritual seeker, which also glorified. Imagine if you complete, why would you seek for something else? There is no meaning really to seeking. Spiritually or not spiritually. Besides, it's what's happening to human beings. It's sort of no choice. Don't make it more than it is. It will be easier for you to let go of this identity of a spiritual seeker. Will be easier to see that this search is not really necessary. I said that, and I understand that because there is no choice, and the energy involved in that search, you can't really stop it until it stops by itself. It's a matter of maybe change in your view on what spirituality, spiritual search is. And let's say this was my wish for people today, to maybe look at that from a different perspective. It may be right perspective or not right perspective. The fact is that it's a different perspective, and that may shift something in the mind. Maybe it will shift some beliefs of what spiritual search is. And let's continue in other videos to look on the other possibilities. Why that seeking perpetuates in you. I will bring different views, different facets, different examples, and maybe something will resonate and you recognize yourself, and you will recognize that it's just a belief you hold. Just recognizing it, just seeing it, it's a big deal. To see all this from different perspectives, it's a big deal. Otherwise, you're stuck in your own head with all these old concepts that are not really true anymore. Thank you for listening and giving me the opportunity to do this work.